So we have a three-man weave for you tonight in what was a controversial, or at least what our rivals down south are trying to make controversial day for the Cincinnati Bearcats, with the hiring of Bearcat basketball assistant coach Mamadou N'diaye coming from UCF. So got a couple of UCF steals. Mamadou N'diaye, the assistant coach, and Mustafa Cham, the obviously heralded center that we got in the transfer portal. I guess that was a couple weeks ago. So we haven't talked in a while, guys. I'm excited to hear everybody's thoughts from the last couple weeks. Had some time off because there really hasn't been any breaking news recently. That, of course, ended today with that hiring. I want to start with Lily. What do you think of A, the hire, and then B, what all the UCF Central Florida, I guess I should say, fans are talking about it?
I think it's a pretty good hire, all things considered. Like a month ago, when Adams left, I know everyone was happy about it, right? Because he missed on so many guys that we felt like we were so close on. But I was a little concerned that we wouldn't be able to, with West being on the hot seat, it's kind of hard to hire, I feel like. But this is to get a package deal out of this is pretty exciting. You get your starting center, who can shoot threes and is one of the best shot blockers in the country. Plus, he's young, so we like to think he can get better. And then you get a proven assistant that, he coached under Todd Golden at San Francisco. He got UCF some guys. He's got really strong connections in Africa. And, we've complained about the lack of big man coaching. It just doesn't feel like, I'm sure we have a big man coach, but he's 7 foot. He's a big man coach. He was a big man in the NBA, and I'm pretty excited about the hire. Honestly, I thought we would do way worse than that. Just felt like maybe we were going to get some retread or some young guy we've never heard of that was trying to take a chance on his career. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm certainly happy. Hudson, you texted us earlier when you saw all the Central Florida tiers, and you're like, we didn't have an assistant coach opening during the season. Like, what are these rumors that apparently he was shopping Cham around? He was, I guess, saying me and him are going to go wherever during the season. But again, we didn't have an opening for an assistant coach. So I feel like that's not necessarily the case when it comes to us. What do you think about all the tiers coming from Florida?
Oh, I love it. I'm eating it up, man. I am eating it up. I mean, sure, it's one thing, like if people were talking when we were talking about going to the Crown, everybody was doing this. Welcome to 2025 Central Florida. That's how this thing works. And I love it. They're like Wes Miller. He's a thief in the night. He's the last face you see before your best player and assistant coach leave and head to Cincinnati. It's like this is happening all over the place. And to Lily's point, I think it's a great to get a big man in the building that's played in the NBA, a 7-footer. Listen, we love Drew, but he couldn't coach Aziz Bandaogo. We get a guy like this who's apparently just reading through what he's been doing. Like he's been involved in some of UCF's best recruits. So I think it's a win-win. I'm interested on some of the money that we saw. Like that one guy posted, it was $1.6 million. Who knows if that's accurate? That scared me a little bit. I'm like, Jesus, like we threw $2 million at an assistant. But all things considered, man, yeah, I'm happy. I know UCF's all pissed off, but outside of our world, though, like nobody gives a shit about this, which is funny. Like everyone was going nuts about DeVries and Indiana. Like no one else outside of UCF and Cincy is even talking about this. But that's why we have the show.
Yeah, that's exactly why. And I like the assistant coach hire, not only because he obviously comes with Cham, but also like now, like you just mentioned it, Hudson, good point. But like we have now a dedicated big man coach. Like that was something that I guess, Aziz Bandaogo, he didn't develop a post game while he was here. It was Lob City or putback dunks. And also we saw what happened with Ayrton Page. It's not like he got better throughout the year. There was one flash where we thought Page was going to get better. I forget, it was early on in conference play, and that obviously that plummeted to 0 minutes a game towards the end. So I'm just excited to what he can do with the development of big men. So hopefully he's here for a few years at least. But yeah, it's crazy to see what Wes Miller is doing. I don't want to just say to save his job, but at least he knows that it's a do or die year. As a whole, though, Hudson, how do we feel? I know we were texting last week, going back and forth on our thoughts about the roster as a whole at this point. It's safe to say that we're maybe 1 or 2 additions away from the roster being set. So we almost have our team at this point. What do you think about the roster as we know it now? Now, we'll talk about some targets here in a few minutes, but right now, not knowing anything else, how do you feel?
So just objectively, it's an upgrade from last year. There's no doubt about it. When you look at the guys that we brought in, the guys that left, some of those, additions by subtraction, really, in my opinion, it's interesting though. Like, I'm still trying to figure out how this whole thing's going to work together. He definitely brought in talent. The one thing we didn't do was bring in, a wing guard type, a 6'5" type of guy like we were talking about that is just a go-to scorer. We did not do that. Now, maybe Shanabayev is that guy, and they're relying on that. But that worries me a little bit because it does look like Jizzle James is probably going to be the guy getting the volume so far of how we're looking at this roster. Scares me a little bit, but they brought in a ton of talent. The spacing is going to be way better. We'll see what they do with some of these targets that we're about to get into. But the spacing by itself is going to be better. We got some more shooters. We got tougher guys, grittier guys, that's for sure. And we got a guy, in Jalen Haynes that's an actual post scorer. We did not have that on the team. So I like what we have. Is it going to be enough? We'll see. Maybe they just gel really well together. And, their ceiling is we could talk on what their ceiling might be. We're not going to get there yet. But, I don't know. It's a wait and see thing because who knows what's going to happen.
We'll talk floor and ceiling when the roster is fully set. I do think the number one worry is that alpha again. That was the worry going into this year. That's going to be the worry, or last year. That's going to be the worry going into this upcoming season is you're probably counting on, outside of Chom being one of the best centers in the country. Obviously, he was the number 2 center in the portal. You are missing out on an alpha so far with outside of Jizzle James and Shanabayev. So you're counting on one of those 2 guys, right? Essentially to be that alpha. So does Jizzle, was he really just a sophomore? Now he takes a junior leap, or is Shanabayev the truth and he's NBA bound after his 1 year in Clifton? I think that's what you're counting on. Lily, is that the number one thing you see? I also want to know just like your full thoughts on the roster as well.
Yeah. And I think the staff made a decision like early on at the beginning of the portal, like the guys they kept or the guys that didn't leave. We still don't know if like guys are forced out or if they wanted just better fits, stuff like that. But Jizzle staying, Day staying, Abayev coming in, like those are clear. The staff is gambling on those guys to get better or be day one impact guys when you're talking about Abayev, and then fill around them. And that's a gamble we have to take, honestly. Like, we're not Kentucky. We can't just go get a star at each position, right? So that's the gamble they chose. And I think in terms of like when you think about those 3 players building around them, they've done a great job so far. I would put the portal right now at like a B+. And to Houdini's point about not really sure exactly what the roster looks like yet, I think that 4 spot, the next edition is that big swing edition to where we could start saying like maybe this is a amazing portal haul. Until that happens, though, I think we gotta stick with the B grade around there.
I gotta say, like, I agree with it's probably around a B in terms of attitude and edginess and everything. It's an A+ for me. Like, there was definitely I beat a dead horse after the Crown tournament that, like, I just don't think we had guys who disliked losing, and you certainly with Kerr Kreese, Sincere Harris, Jalen Reynolds as the top 3, like, dog, the ex-dog. Like, Lily's got his spreadsheet already for who's the biggest dog on the team. So I think that's an A+. I really like what Wes did there is he got some guys who are flat out going to hate losing. So I really like what he did there. I do worry about the alpha on the team, but you know what? The portal's not closed. Apparently we got a boatload of cash. It seems like this is a spending spree that Wes Miller has gone on. I wasn't fully expecting, you hear the numbers that are thrown around. Like, are we in the middle of the Big 12? Are we down on the bottom? Like, Hudson, are we rich? Are we rich, Hudson?
This is why you got to love Wes Miller, though. Because, he was like, I'm tapping into everybody I know. I'm tapping into the big fundraising guys. Any CEO I've ever even shook hands with, I'm calling him. I'm dialing him up because he knows it's do or die. And yeah, like the NIL money just kept the number that we kept seeing just kept growing and growing. And then you see some of the numbers thrown out with Jom and the assistant coach we got from UCF. And the one thing is, we wanted him to overhaul this thing. And this is going to be a completely different team. New identity, screw the whole thing where bringing everybody back actually means anything because it didn't do shit for us last year. So I'm excited. This is like, I didn't expect to feel like excitement going into this season. I thought it was like, just get it done with, and then we'll have to rebuild after that. But now I'm excited, brand new roster, and a lot of dogs, like you said. I mean, hell, 247, I think they got us. Not that this really means anything, but I think with the recruiting and the transfer portal, we're like, 12, Lily? Something like that. So on paper, it looks really good.
On paper, it does. And I feel like it always does. That's what the haters are always saying, like Wes Miller off-season champ. You know what I mean? Like that is the number one thing when I'm like texting my buddies who are non-UC fans. I'm like, hey, here's another one. Whenever we get linked with someone, I'm always like, look at this. We're rich. And they're like, yeah, dude, you say this every single April and May. Like get a grip. So, Lily, are you going into this year with the roster we know now with as much excitement as you went in last year? Now, again, we were wrong about last year. So, like, nobody thought what was going to happen happened. And I'm curious where your head's at.
I'm cautiously optimistic right now that it goes into that the last guy we had here. I know there might be another depth piece after that if we had two, but there's a couple things that make me want to be as excited as I was, and we'll see what happens. But I think like something that we kind of just overlooked at this point, like the day it happened, it was just such a shock. But there was talk of like when Day and Jizzle stayed that like we're stuck, like we're not going to get any better. We're stuck with these 2 point guards. The staff added Kirk Risa and the other 2 point guards stayed. I think that's a big deal. This isn't like a CJ Frederick scenario to me. Kirk Risa has tons of experience at multiple stops as a passer, as a point guard, as a leader, as a shooter. And it just makes me feel so much better about the point guard room than I did about like last year. Obviously I was excited, but it makes me feel better. And then even adding Chom after we had Haynes, like there was a couple days there where I thought Haynes was just going to be our starting five, and I was a little nervous. I'm like, this guy's exciting, but I don't think you know what I mean? I'm not convinced he's a Big 12, 28-minute a night guy that we can rely upon. And so it feels like we have depth at those two positions right now. And then you get to the other parts of the roster: Sincere Harris, dog, Celestine, shooter. Like we can kind of see what's happening here. Still stuff to do, but I'm probably gonna be excited if we land someone like perhaps Baba Miller, who we're probably going to talk about here in a little.
Yeah, I'll talk about him right now. I'm going to put a bow on who we already have. Just a full roundup. Sincere Harris from West Virginia, Jalen Celestine from Baylor, Kirk Risa from Kentucky, Jalen Haynes from George Mason, and of course Mustafa Cham from Central Florida. So that is the portal class as of now. But Lily, you're the wizard with the follows on social media. I don't know. You're the wizard. You're the wizard. So talk to us about who we're going after, kind of who is a target at the moment, who's followed who, and kind of what's going on, because it seems like it's been a minute since we've heard anything.
So from my perspective, Baba Miller is like the number one guy right now. The follows are there. The staff going down to Florida for what we assume was him is there. And it was the big wigs too. It was Wes and Chad Dollar. So that to me says he's a priority. Plus, if you look at the spreadsheets, there's a wide open spot there right at power forward, guys. And we could do the goofy Jalen Haynes at the 4, Celestine at the 4. Those are options. But to me, going into a season with that, it's just a headache. I want clarity, and I want like a clear 4 on the roster, and Baba Miller is that. Other than him, I'm sure we have some backups, but on the spreadsheet, it like Sean Durer, Gordon, Caton Bristow are guys we were linked with, Rylan Griffin, those are guys that maybe are backup plans for not like true fours, but guys we could take gambles on if we miss on Baba. But it has been very quiet on the Baba front here in the past couple of days. So hopefully something pops up soon, because he would just, my excitement would take off if we land him. Big time pickup.
So all eyes are on Baba Miller from Florida Atlantic. Houdini, have you looked up his tape where everything looks amazing with every other recruit that we see in the transfer portal? I sure did. And I know I texted you guys. I'm like, we need this guy. We need this guy.
I love watching the highlight tapes, because it just shows the highlights, as you might imagine. And he looks awesome. And if people were upset about Dylan Mitchell leaving, he's not quite that athlete, but you're going to get some high-rise dunks out of this kid. And he's got a decent three ball too. I know, on the numbers, it looks like he's been getting better and better, 34%, but just the form, like you have to guard him. You can't just leave him wide open. Averaged about 2 blocks, almost 3 assists as well. So he's a bit of a playmaker. I'd have to defer to Lily on his defensive effort, but he's a lengthy dude. He would fit perfectly in that 4 spot, because like Lily said, I mean, who do we even have? Like Tyler McKinley's like our true 4, and maybe Haynes played a lot of power forwards or center, whichever one you want to pick there. So having a guy like him would be awesome. I guess we have enough NIL money to pull him, because I think he's a pretty highly touted guy in the portal right now, especially with a lot of these guys already committing. So I would be ecstatic to get him. I think he'd really round out the roster and, like you said, solidify that 4 spot.
And I at this point, nobody should have any bias as to what school people are transferring in from. I think it's something to be said where if you have like 8 low-level guys, all playing in the MEAC or I don't know, the Patriot League, like, yeah, that's probably concerning. But if you do have a bias of a lower level guy, like Baba Miller did start off at Florida State. And I mean, he started 32 games as a sophomore. Now, Florida State, I don't think has been any good recently, but this is still a guy who averaged 7 and 5 in the ACC. And then again, of course, transfers down to Florida Atlantic, gets 30 minutes a game and shoots 34% from 3, which is not bad for a guy who is 6'11". So I love the guy. Like you mentioned, I guess we have the money for him. I'm not entirely sure, but there's a lot of smoke surrounding this guy, or at least there was. And of course, I feel like the whole portal has kind of gone quiet. I feel like there hasn't been as many news even across, other schools. Now, obviously, a lot of players have already committed, but still, it's pretty crazy to see, kind of the lack of movement that we've seen recently. We still have a few spots. I don't know if we're going to fill all of them. Like again, the scholarships have gone up to 15. That's been a topic that we've talked about where it's like, I don't think we're going to use 15. But anyway, Baba Miller, he's the one to look up for everybody on YouTube, because I think you'll like what you see. So kind of switching gears, the portal obviously was open and show. Well, hold up. Before I move on from basketball, any final thoughts on the basketball front from either of you? I think we touched. Oh, we'll talk about departures, actually. A lot of commitments going out from Cincinnati. They have since committed. Dylan Mitchell going to St. John's. Of course, Josh Reed to Penn State. Rayvon Griffith to Kent State. And then, Lily, you fill in the rest. I'm trying to rattle these off at the top of my head.
Page at Northwestern, Hickman, Charleston, Skillings, Baylor. Is that everybody?
I think that might be. Which one?
Dylan?
Dylan to St. John's. Yeah, I did say. I think
CJ Anthony, Iona.
There we go.
Shout out CJ.
Anyone stick? I want one guy that like sticks out to you, whether it's like this fits perfectly or what, Lily.
I think Rayvon in the MAC is perfect for him, like where he's at in his career. And I'm going to be trying to watch some of their games this year just to see if he can like get his way back up, or even, sometimes guys find where they're at, love it, and stay there. I always feel bad when I'm always thinking about like guys jumping back up. Like a lot of people are totally cool just being in their lane and you don't always have to jump around, so that's an exciting one, I think. And I'm kind of intrigued by Josh Reed at Penn State. I just don't know. It just feels like fake. Like, did that actually happen?
Hudson, what about you?
Yeah, the Josh Reed thing. The Josh Reed one kind of head scratcher for me. Like I wanted to see a Josh Reed show. I wanted to see him go to like Miami of Ohio and just get volume shots up, just launching the ball from three. We won't see that. He'd probably have a similar role at Penn State, but everyone kind of made sense when you look at like Dylan Mitchell, St. John's. Like I totally see that. And Rick Pitino might make him, all Big East by the end of the year, and we're going to be devastated by it. Everyone kind of made sense. Dan Skilling's just like an athletic freak. I love all the Baylor people that are like, we just got, the haul of the century with Dan Skilling. It's like, really? Like now he's doing TikToks for you. And, it was cool when he was doing it for us, but now I'm like, I'm disgusted by it. So yeah, everybody made sense, man. And Rayvon's the one guy and Iona, I'm going to be watching CJ Anthony. See, like, was this guy like a legit D1 player that just decided to, sit the bench and cheer everybody on for a few years? So yeah, I'll be watching, checking in on all these guys. Cause we got no hard feelings with anybody. It just didn't work out here.
No, it just didn't work out. And I know you guys both said it, but I'll reiterate it. I feel like every single transfer outside of one, like, really made sense. I was like, oh yeah, Arrington Page and Northwestern, that checks out. Absolutely. I even thought Josh Reed to Penn State really checked out. Now the first thing I did do was look up the arena to see how far down that Jumbotron hung at Penn State, because that is liable for a Josh Reed 3-ball to hit the bottom. So that is the one thing I made sure to look up, but it really did. Like Rayvon, I hope he kills it in the MAC. Obviously there's no ill will towards anybody. But obviously the one that I was like, okay, this guy got 1.7 reported alleged dollars, and that's Dan Skilling's to Baylor. So that is something that, again, like with these numbers, do we know if they're true or not? Who knows? That was what is thrown out all over the internet is 1.7 or at least 1.5. And it's like, man, I guess at that point he was their first get. Like he was the only player on the roster. So maybe it's like they see some untapped potential with him. Obviously we did up until this year. So best of luck to everybody who left.